Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the FloTrack podcast. I am here with the one and only Ben Rosario. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Nia. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. So let's just get right into it. We're going to do the storybook style, start with the origins. Sound good? Sound good?
That sounds great, Nia.
Amazing. So, you served as the NAZ Elite coach until 2020 of April, remained the team's executive director and a member of NAZ's Elite board of directors until resigning in October. So, safe to say, it was a huge part of your life for a long time. So, can you speak to just the emotional process of deciding to leave and then, like, how it was just actually leaving?
Sure, I can speak to that. It was a decision I had been thinking about for a long time, figuring out what my next move would be. I had owned running stores in St. Louis, Missouri for 6 years, from 2006 to 2012, and then I had launched the team in 2014, and so we're coming up on 11 years. And it was just time for something new. It was really just a gut decision. And in August of this year, I decided that the Marathon Project, relaunching the Marathon Project, would be my next venture. And so it was a bit of a process emotionally to let go, but I made a statement a couple of weeks ago, and now it's on to the next thing. And now I'm really just looking forward.
So the urge to relaunch the Marathon Project, was that kind of like your gut feeling and indication that now is the time to do this?
Yes, I would say that is true. I felt like this was the time to do this. We're in a really cool um, era of distance running with people running faster than ever and setting PRs left and right, both at the pro level and the amateur level. And I think that if you look at the history of marathons in the United States, there's been essentially two big booms. The 70s, marathons and road races. Um, the 70s and then the early 2000s. And I believe that now is a great time for an event like this to launch in what I believe is sort of a third boom.
For sure. And I can see this becoming something big. Do you ever imagine it being a part of like just the big races in terms of marathon, like the London Marathon, New York City Marathon? Would that be an ideal goal for you?
I think it'll always be different than those, but I do hope that it will be considered one of the top marathons in the world for professional athletes and amateur athletes. It will never be a 50,000 person event, so it's different
Hmm.
uh, because of the nature of the course. But I believe the nature of the course, the loop course, criterium style, is what makes it great as well. So that small, intimate feel that we're going to have is really one of our selling points.
For sure. Can we dive into just the Marathon Project as a whole in terms of the relaunching? I know initially it came out in 2020 because the world just shut down. So do you mind just like diving into that of the initial why and how it just the why just ended up changing as we get into this relaunch?
Yeah, so in 2020, the Olympic Trials Marathon was in February, the end of February, Leap Day, actually. And it was a wonderful event in Atlanta, historical event, historical trials. And 2 weeks later, the world shut down because of COVID. And so there were no races for months and months and months. And in the summer, there were a couple of track races, including one that I put on with Josh Cox in St. George, Utah, very small, 5,000 meter race for some pros. And at that time, Josh and I started talking about could we do this with a road race? Take that same concept that we did in Utah, expand it just a little bit, keep everything super safe, but find a place to do a marathon. And so we started looking for venues, and we found this amazing venue, this resort in Chandler, Arizona, Wild Horse Pass, with super flat roads where we could create a loop course. And in September, we decided that would be the venue. And we got to work and we promoted the event and created a website and created a virtual race that went along with it, recruited athletes, which wasn't very hard because they had no other choice. And by December, we pulled it off. And so that was the origin story of Marathon Project 2020. Um, and then I'm happy to get into the launch if you want.
Yes, I'd love that.
Okay, so the relaunch, I think it was a similar approach in the sense that I decided this is what I wanted to do, and you can't do these things by yourself. So I reached back out to first the two people that had um, the most to do with the Marathon Project 2020, and that was Josh Cox, who's an athlete representative and a good friend of mine, and then Matt Helbig, who was my old business partner in St. Louis when we owned Big River Running Company and Big River Race Management. He still owns Big River Race Management, which is a timing and managing company. They do races all over the country, and he was Big River Race Management, were our management company in 2020. So once I got Josh and Matt on board, then it was just a matter of, okay, who else do we need on the team? And I reached out to a woman named Katie Sutton, who's the current president of the Festival of Miles Foundation in St. Louis. She has done an amazing job bringing that event to a whole new level over the last few years, and she was the final piece of the puzzle. So myself, Josh, Matt, and Katie are the ownership group, and we have been working really hard the last couple of months, creating a website, creating um, all of the not creating, but working with the venue and working with the host hotel and making sure that the athlete experience a year from now is going to be a premium one. And that's our goal, is to create a premier experience for every single athlete that races at the Marathon Project in December of 25, the amateurs and the pros. And then we've got one heck of a fun 5K that we're going to put on as well.
Oh, this sounds fun. Maybe I should sign up. Just
You
kidding.
should sign up.
But but you mentioned that you can't do this alone. It obviously takes a village. Do you mind like going a little deeper in the role and how important that support was to have in order to get this up and off the ground?
Yeah, everybody's going to play their role. Josh is the VP of corporate sales, so he'll be in charge of soliciting sponsorships, corporate partners, companies that understand our vision, agree with our vision, see our vision, and can help us really do something quite special. Matt and his team are going to be in charge of not only the basic timing of the race, which actually they're going to do an awesome job, and the splits and things that they're going to do online are going to be super cool. But making sure that the course and the athlete experience and the fan experience on the course are first class, world class. So they're in charge of everything related to the course and to the timing. Katie is in charge of the athlete experience, so everything from getting picked up at the hotel to packet pickup, the expo, gear drop off, all of those things which sound mundane maybe, but they're really, really important to making sure that the athletes have a world-class experience. And then I'm in charge of overseeing the whole thing, branding, social media, um, working with the media and getting the word out, communicating with the athletes, the agents, writing the monthly newsletter, updating the website, all those sorts of things. And I enjoy that kind of work. So I think we're all looking forward to our various roles.
It sounds like a well-oiled machine, and it looks as though I would imagine that the engine is kind of what you were saying, seeing the vision. How do you like how do they stand out to you for you to know that you know what you guys belong on those teams? Like what are those intangibles that they all shared where you're like, I need you?
Well, we all, I knew each of them, and myself and Josh and Matt had worked together super wonderfully in 2020. So we knew each other very well. Myself and Matt knew Katie. We had to introduce Josh to Katie, but I would say that just our history, everything we've done over the last 20 years or so, we're all in this similar age range, and we've all done a number of different things in the running industry and quite successfully. So I felt I could trust everyone in the group, and we could all trust one another. And I think it's a group where, though we communicate quite often, we don't have to oversee one another every day. We trust one another that we're doing what we need to do to get ready for the event, and As the full-time, and I'm sort of the full-time person, where they have other jobs. They can trust me, I think, to make sure that every single day we're moving forward and making progress.
That definitely makes sense. So obviously, I feel like you're never bored. I think every day may look different for you, but to the best of your ability, could you explain to us and the viewers what is the day in the life of Ben Rosario as we are preparing for the marathon project coming up?
Yeah, I mean, for example, this morning, so I'm talking to you at 10:30 a.m. my time. At 7:30 a.m., I got on my computer and I started making sure that all of the volunteer jobs were ready on the registration website. So the registration website will come this Wednesday, December 18th. Um, I know this is coming out after that, but as of December 18th, let me say it that way. As of December 18th, athletes will be able to register and apply for the race, and volunteers will be able to apply. We're going to have a really cool volunteer squad. Everybody's going to get some Marathon Project gear, and they're going to be very involved in helping put this thing on as well. And I want them to feel like a part of the TMP family. So my job this morning was updating the volunteer registration site, making sure that all the jobs were up and that the time slots were correct and all those things. But once I do that, then I think I have another media obligation this afternoon, and then I'm back to the computer and probably going to be working on the website again, just making sure that every single word in there is correct and that it's ready to go for the launch. Once we launch, then I'll be on social media, making sure that we're putting out Instagram posts and tweets and Blue Sky posts and Facebook posts to make sure that we're reaching runners across the globe, letting them know that this event is happening. And I really want to create sort of a brand around the event beyond just race day. And so all year long, we'll be communicating with athletes and marathoners, and our newsletter will include not only info about our race, but also marathon news and tips and all sorts of fun things.
It sounds fun for sure. And as we're talking about fun and experience, and you briefly mentioned about the fan experience, how important that is from a fan's perspective. Could you talk about what you want them to experience as they're, I guess, watching, as they're cheering?
I would be happy to do that. So we feel strongly that the fan experience at the Marathon Project is going to be very unique in a good way, because it's a 4.26-mile loop that they do 6 times. You could stand in one spot where the athletes come off of the straightaway from the start and they go into the finish the same way. You could stand on that corner and see them 12 times without moving. That is not possible in the big city marathons. And those marathons are awesome, and that's not a knock on them by any means. But I do think from a fan experience perspective, our race will be much more like the Olympic trials has been the last several years, where it's on a criterium course and the momentum builds and the energy builds. And there is a lot of opportunity to cheer for your favorite runners as they go by. Your friends and family, if you're watching the amateur race on Saturday, or your favorite pro runners on Sunday. And so I think you're going to have a real impact on the race. In football, for example, they talk about the 12th man, the crowd. Well,
Yes.
that's what our fans are going to be. They're going to be the 12th man. They're going to be the driving force behind creating the energy at the event for the athletes. So the fans are really, really important, and we're going to treat them quite well.
Oh, this is exciting. I think we all are in for a treat. So that's something to definitely look forward to. So I have to ask, without thinking about boundaries, circumstances, any of that matter, 10 years from now, where is the marathon project?
10 years from now. So in the 2035, I think the sky is the limit, certainly. We would like to be one of the fastest marathons in the world. We would like to be consistently producing um, winning times as fast as just about any marathon in the world. Uh, we we think 10 years from now we could potentially even have American records set on our course, possibly even a world record. It really is that fast of a course, and we're committed to spending the necessary capital and putting in the necessary time to create the pace groups that are required to produce those kind of times. So I think certainly that's one thing we'd like to see 10 years from now. We'd also like to revolutionize the fan experience at a marathon. We think that it can be every bit as exciting as going to a major college football game or NBA or WNBA game. We consider it a professional sport, and we want to create a professional fan experience for everybody that's there. And we want the amateur race to be considered one of the best amateur races, maybe the deepest and fastest amateur race in the whole world. So those are some of the things I would say we would like to accomplish, maybe even before 10 years.
I could see it happening in probably less than 5. So, Ben, obviously this takes a ton of investment. It's a process. There's challenges that comes along with this. How did you combat those as you're like coming into this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the big challenges is just getting the right team together, which we've already discussed.
Mhm.
Um, we did need to raise some capital between the four of us, which we did, and we'll need to raise some sponsor. We'll need to procure some sponsor dollars, which Josh is working on. So, money is always a challenge when you're starting a business. So we understand that, and we're committed to that, and committed to spending the necessary dollars to get this thing off the ground. One of the challenges that I think we have an advantage on when you start a new event is when you start from scratch, you have to convince people that you can do it. But we do have 2020. So we do have proof of concept. So one of our biggest challenges is actually, I think, one of our biggest advantages in the sense that, yes, we're sort of a new event, but not really, because we've shown what we can do. And the event was, broadcast live, and it was there was a replay on NBC Sports that evening. And so you can watch what we did in 2020 and see how amazing the event was, even with no fans, and feel some of the energy that was out there on the course just from the few people that were able to be there cheering. And so we feel confident that we can take the images and the video from 2020 and the experiences of the athletes that competed there and use that to our advantage to market the 2025 event and beyond.
Okay, I get it. It's not definitely not for a weak of heart then, faint of heart. So, yeah, like with the willingness that's there, I know that there's probably a ton of people that want to be the next Ben Rosario or has a project that they would love to get off the ground and running. So you mentioned it a little bit, but just expanding on maybe some words of wisdom for people who would like to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah, I definitely consider myself an entrepreneur above anything else. And I think with all the different ventures that I've been involved in since I started working in the running industry 20 some odd years ago, I think that number one, you have to surround yourself with great people, people you can trust, people who are driven, people who are passionate about the world of running. That's a key. I think you also have to acknowledge the challenges and create a really comprehensive business plan. Every single venture that I've ever started, I've started with that, and that forces you to face reality, which is that, I mean, if you write a proper business plan, which is that there are going to be challenges, and you have to address those and understand that, hey, this could fail or this could take a long time to succeed, and you have to be prepared for that. And I think um, it's not all rainbows and butterflies business, and you have to understand that and be prepared for that. Um, and you have to be willing to take a risk, and that's not for everybody, and that's totally okay. But it is risky to start a business, and I think being someone who can handle that risk and handle the ups and downs of the business world is those things are important. You have to kind of do a little bit of self-introspection and understand if you're that type of person or not. So all those things are important, but I really do say that number one is surrounding yourself with great people, because you're never going to succeed completely by yourself. You need others.
Mm, super well said. And I hope everybody took notes on that. But with that being said, thank you so much for joining me, Ben. It was amazing chatting with you and finding out more about the Marathon Project. Can't wait to see how it comes about. Can't wait to see everything.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Of course.